Greetings and welcome back to another episode of the Daily Run, and today we're playing as Blue Baby. I keep saying that Blue Baby is my favorite character, but my scores and my performance doesn't really show it, and I feel like I'm due for a good Blue Baby run, and this one was exactly that. It was such a nice daily in some sense because I feel again it wasn't really that variance reliant. Obviously every Isaac daily is, and there are some things which you just can't influence, but with the items that we've gotten, and at least from what I've read on the subreddit, there weren't a lot of people who had too much of a different experience than I did, and I always enjoy when dailies are like that. Obviously, I still realize that there's a lot of people who play the dailies and they don't necessarily go on the subreddit and that were just extremely unlucky, but that's something that you can't avoid. So I guess what I'm just trying to say is that I've had fun with this daily, and that's really what's important, at least in my book. So what exactly made it fun? I wouldn't say it made it fun, but what really did change the whole maybe perspective of daily is this first treasure room, and it did give us the D6, and the D6 is an item which I usually I'm against in some sense because it does promote variance and a lot of those things, but it's very different when you get the D6 on the very first floor when you're playing as Isaac, for example, or when you get it later on in the game. And because in this particular floor, the Devil Deal, while it did appear, it didn't have any items in it, I still feel like there weren't a lot of ways that this could have gone, because for example, as soon as I got a D6, obviously it has a full charge, so the first natural instinct is to just reroll the poop that you've had before as your active item, so you get the halo. Obviously you're gonna be picking that up because it's an amazing item, and then when you go in the Devil Deal, you're obviously trying to save your D6 charge for the Devil Deal. When you see there are no items, the second instinct is to just reroll the boss room item, and of course you get the wooden spoon, and the wooden spoon is a really good item in my opinion because it does give you speed. I would imagine most people would pick it up. I guess some wouldn't, but then again, you know, how much variance can there really be? So I pick it up, and obviously I feel like at this point we're all on the same page. So it's just about playing well, trying not to get hit too many times, and then trying maybe to go a way forward from that. I would expect, of course, things to change on the third floor and beyond, but the whole prospect and just the idea of how the run changes based on when you get the D6 is something that I feel like is really influential, and it really does kind of influence the feeling of the run, and it just felt like a little bit more fair. And maybe that's just my imagination, or maybe I'm just thinking that this is the way to go, but I do feel like it was a bit more fair. And I know that fairness is a very hard thing to quantify, so if I had some statistical data or some numbers to support that theory or that statement I just said, I would love to do so, but I don't. And I just guess I'm trying to ask you, how did you feel about this run? Did you have the same experience? Were there any other things that maybe you've discovered that I've blatantly missed, or maybe did I discover some things which helped me out? Like, for example, picking up the blue map allowed me to go to the secret rooms and second secret rooms, and maybe in one of those rooms I got a lot of bombs or consumables which maybe you haven't gotten, and for that reason maybe you couldn't have gone to the shop or maybe to the treasure room on a particular floor, and maybe you missed out on that shot or whatever. Basically, I'm asking you if you had much of a different experience than I did, and maybe I'm just imagining this was fair just because I had a good run, and maybe that's not the case at all. So, all in all, I did pick up the blue map, and that is a decision that I feel like always kinda is a bad one to make, because you have 15 cents, you don't have a lot of money, and the blue map is just an objectively good item. There's no reason not to pick it up in my opinion. Sure, it deducts you like 50 points in total for the item penalty, and sure, it does make you cost the 15 cents, but if you have enough money to spare, or at least if you have 5 more cents, you can afford the arcade, or at least have the chance at an arcade, there's no reason not to pick it up, because the item is gonna pay for itself eventually. Not only if you're lacking bombs is it good, because it shows you where those secret room locations are, and then you can optimize and maximize the usages of your bombs to the best possible effect. And obviously I'm not just saying because you know where the bombs are, but you know where the secret room is, which means you can kind of scout the area around the secret room and spend a bomb in a place where you know it'll uncover both the secret room and maybe something else as well, and that is just gonna give you the boost, or maybe it's just gonna give you that little bit extra edge over the players who didn't find the blue map. But besides that, you're just gonna get something like 100 to 200 points just from going to the secret rooms, and that already pays by itself. Like I said, if you go to the one secret room, and if you imagine that this is a floor where we'll go to the void, the void is obviously a really hard floor to find those things, but it's also very important, because if I want to get a forget-me-now via some breaking method, you want to kind of have the access to the secret room, and the blue map will allow that. So all in all, it's just a really good item, but it never really does anything too grandiose for you. It'll never change the run, it won't break it, it won't make it so that you're much better off, but it's just going to give you that little bit of a benefit, or maybe the edge over other players, and I feel like that's what dailies are really all about. It's not so much about min-maxing, I guess some people could call it min-maxing, but it's more about making the objectively good decisions which are gonna reward you. I guess you're trying to get the biggest return on your investment, and all of those decisions and reasons and items are really gonna change the landscape and the outcome of the run. One thing I would like to mention here, if you're paying attention to the screen, what ended up happening is, of course, this is an angel deal run, or at least there were a lot of angel deals, and because we have the D6, it turned out to be a pretty good idea, because not only do now the angel deals have more items in them, the key fragments that the angel statues drop, you can also reroll into other angel deal items, so it's kind of a double whammy in that sense. So, I did go to the angel deal. Obviously there were 2 angel statues and also 2 items. I got a battery charge, which was very exciting, so I rerolled all the 4 items in the treasure room, not the treasure room, the angel room, and what ended up happening is, of course, I picked up the wafer, which seems like the obvious choice at that point, just in the case if there was ever a sacrificial room later on which I want to use, having the wafer would be really beneficial because I wouldn't lose as much points on damage penalty, and that's what I was going for with that decision. But there were also 3 other items in there, and for some reason I thought when I pick up the first item, all the rest are gonna disappear, so I just walked out of the room, and honestly, when I was playing the daily, I didn't even notice, but looking back at it now, I noticed that there was a dead dove in the top right corner, which would obviously grant us flight, and that's an item you don't really want to skip out on, because the obvious disadvantage of not having flight, you can't avoid creep, you can't fly over chasms, it's overall just a much safer place to be in. It also did really influence my decision to release my play on the Void, and it was so weird because I got to the secret room and there was Curse of the Blind, so I didn't see what the items were, but the problem was that there was an item in the middle of the secret room which was just there, and I couldn't access it because I didn't have flight, but also didn't have any way of making a bridge to go over that chasm, so I feel like having flight in that situation might have netted me something like a Forget-Me-Now, and it was just a bummer because it's not like I missed out on flight because I made a different decision, but it was just right there. I just didn't pick up the item because of my ignorance and because I wasn't paying attention, and I feel like that was a big mistake and a big bummer, and I'm really wondering what really was in that secret room in the Void. So if you know what it was, if you had flight, also please let me know what it is, because I want to know if I missed out on the potential seam which would have allowed me to rank even better, and I feel like already I was ranking in a pretty good position. So, what's else to say there, really? I didn't get to boss rush in time because I just wasn't fast enough. The early of the run was kind of slow and sluggish, and because I tried to maximize my rerolls to get good items, it did take me a bit longer than expected, and the first floor I think took me like 4 minutes, which is already really bad, and when that happens, you just kind of get thrown out of the loop, and because of that you miss out on maybe a minute and or maybe 2 minutes on the next floor, and then that just kind of adds up. You encounter a room or a floor where you really have to spend a lot of time just opening sacks and maybe getting consumables, and obviously you can't miss them because they're so important in the early game, but they do affect you in a bigger way than you would imagine if you do. So it just kind of adds up, and you start losing out on time, and I just ended up missing boss rush, but not too much actually. If I was only like 30 seconds faster, I feel like I could have done it just because I had a really strong run at that point. Having Sacred Heart plus technology 0.5 is obviously a great combo because you get the homing shots, but it also scales with your damage, and you're just able to pretty much one-shot every single enemy in the room. And of course, when you get to the boss, not only do you have your your homing tears that allow you to do damage, but you also have the technology, which also just adds a little bit extra on top of that. So, as I was saying before, I did try to break the game by just spawning a lot of pedestals, the judgments, and the temperance cards. I tried to get as many pedestals, reroll them, and then I picked up all of the items that existed in the secret room. And sadly, none of them really gave me anything too spectacular, but I got Pyro and I got Skeleton Key, so that's good for swag bonus. And I also got Missing though, and it did give me this crazy run. I figured maybe I could go fight another boss, but I felt like I wasn't strong enough to do that. But all in all, we did finish in the 20th place, which is obviously very good. Our damage penalty wasn't too high, which I'm really proud of because that doesn't happen often, and our swag bonus was also higher, at least relative to people who maybe made it to boss rush, but didn't find these items which would allow them to have a higher swag bonus. For example, they didn't find the sack of sacks, and because of that, they maybe didn't find the judgment card, and for that reason they didn't find the pyro and the skeleton key, which obviously gave me something like 3,000 points in total. So even though I missed boss rush, I feel like I made up for it with other plays, and obviously the fact that I didn't take too much damage did put me in a pretty good position. So overall, a very enjoyable run. I did enjoy it. I hope you had fun as well, and obviously I hope that the run was at least somewhat fair for everyone involved, and I'm really interested to see how your run went, because every run with a D6 does have a lot of chances of going in a different direction because of variance, so having that experience and just seeing it from another side perspective, I feel like is really interesting, and it's always nice when people comment and talk about it, and then you can maybe discuss it, and I think that's what the point of dailies is. So I hope you enjoyed this one, guys, and I hope to see you next time.